Isaac, we're a few weeks into pre-season now, obviously as head of strength and conditioning yourself. What does that look like from a physical perspective?
Yep, obviously there is a big focus on developing the physical traits that are important in basketball. So there's definitely a big emphasis in the gym at the moment. Obviously we're looking to build qualities such as strength, power, and then on the court we're getting exposed to change of direction, speed, and then obviously playing basketball and then the associated conditioning with that.
And how does that all start? Obviously when we came in here a few weeks ago, there were all sorts of stations set up doing what looks like all sorts of tests. Is that sort of how you measure where players are at as a starting point?
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, we have a lot of access to technology. We use that to form a baseline across all those physical characteristics that are important in basketball that make up those qualities that I just spoke about. And once we form that baseline, then that gives us the rationale for our training program from there.
And is it a case of different players having the requirement to be sort of specialised in that testing? i.e. you're looking at a Tyrell versus a Tristan and you want them to have different outcomes from those tests or things they're working on?
Yeah, definitely. It's a good question. I think a few things come into play. Player history, age, those things definitely play a role. If we're looking at a veteran like Casey Prather, who's played a lot of basketball, it's probably not about trying to make him a better athlete. It's probably about trying to, do the things that we can keep on the court as long as possible versus, maybe someone like Tristan Divas, who's a little younger and he's probably got a lot of developing to do due to his age. And then, that sort of coincides with our testing, and then we can sort of find out maybe the areas that they are strong in or they do excel versus the areas that maybe we can tidy up and there's room for improvement.
And by and large, do you get the impression that the players enjoy that sort of introspection, looking at themselves and what they can improve from a physical perspective?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's always a lot of questions, and I think it builds a healthy level of competition between the guys. I mean, they're professional athletes, they're born competitors, and I think when they see that someone might be beating them, it definitely drives them to push a little harder.
And you've seen it on the court as well, doing some yo-yos as well. Does that competitive element come in out there? Clearly, we want them to be the fittest athletes they can be, and when they have each other driving on that accountability, does that help?
100%. I mean, it's a lot of the time it's the same sort of guys that are the real competitors, and you can see it almost sort of lights a bit of a fire in their eyes. But it's great to see them compete and challenge.
And what does the personnel look like at the minute in the high performance unit? Obviously, we've got yourself, Jacob, Stephen Bird, but how do you all sort of fit together, and what does it look like?
Yeah, we had a bit of a restructure over the off-season period. So we've got, Stephen, who's our head of performance, oversees the unit, then myself in the head of strength and conditioning. We've got Jacob, who's our head of medical or physio, and then we've got also Peter, who's our dietitian, and then Matt, who's also our psychologist. And then we also have an assistant strength and conditioning coach, and then an assistant physio as well as like a trainer. So there's a few people sort of, work together to build the unit or the team, And
we talk about a team sort of on the court, but that team you mentioned there, is it sort of communication that is at the fore for you when you've got different personalities and different characters that have different needs and requirements?
Yeah, certainly. We put a big focus on communication so that we don't end up working in our individual silos. We want to make sure we're all on the same page and we work in cohesion so that we all know what's happening at the same time.
And what's the dialogue like with coaches? Obviously, you've got Stu through the door now. To what extent are you having to have conversations with him, D-Mac, Vandy, and Pat about where certain players are at? Yeah,
pretty regularly. I'd say most days. We put a big emphasis on being really transparent with our communication and being process driven. So we have a lot of processes and systems in places so that the communication is very clear and that we're on the same page with the coaches. So we're trying to, remove as much ambiguity as possible between the messages that we're trying to get across from the performance department.
And are you able to give us a little bit of an insight into how a day and a week works for the athletes? Is it a case of them sort of working and lifting on certain days and having rests on others, or are they lifting every day? What does that look like?
Yeah, generally on our main training days, we'll have a lift component and a court component. We lift first and then we'll get on the court afterwards. And then on our days where we have what we call like our gym extras, we'll come back in and do those after the court. I'd say that would make up a standard training day. On our lighter days, we have a lighter gym session and then maybe a lighter court workout. And maybe there's less competing and less going up and down, but a similar structure.
I guess recovery is as important as the work that you're doing here. How much are you having to guide them on how they feel at their best when they're coming back in the next day?
Yeah, I think a lot of the guys are pretty experienced, and the guys that have been around, they sort of lead the guys that maybe are a little newer. So they're pretty autonomous with that. But we do put a big emphasis on our big rocks, which is our sleep, our nutrition, and they lay the foundations for our recovery for sure.
And I guess the biggest question is how are the boys looking? Obviously, you've had them at your disposal for a couple of weeks now. Obviously, 2 coming back from the Asia Cup. But how are the boys looking?
Yeah, good. The energy in the gym's been great, and there's been some big numbers getting thrown around, so the boys are looking strong. We're putting in the work on the court, they're looking fit. It's getting to that point, I guess, of the preseason where all that hard work comes to the pointy end, and the boys are ready to go. So, yeah, pretty excited to see it all happen.
And do you get as excited as an individual, as a department, for that season to come around as much as they do?
Yeah, certainly. As much as I do maybe enjoy a little bit, whipping the boys and getting them into shape and working them hard, it is definitely, I guess, the fruits of your labour when you get to see them out on the basketball court and you think, yeah, cool, like all that hard work that we did, it was for an actual purpose, and yeah, seeing them get up and down, yeah.